Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pro wrestling mecca of the world in Cleveland, Ohio. I am your dangerously, dashing, strikingly charming, sexy, gorgeous, good-looking host, Nick. And with me, as always, is no one. I'm by myself because this is PWP TV. You want to hit the show? The Gmail's ProWrestlingPod@gmail.com. Once again, ProWrestlingPod@gmail.com. The Twitter is @ProWPodcast. Once again, @ProWPodcast. You can find us on iTunes, Podcast Addict, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, and right here on YouTube. I'll leave a link below for all that good stuff. So before I jump into today's video, I want to address a couple of things. One minor, one pretty awesome. The minor thing, we'll get the bad stuff out of the way, is we have been having technical issues up the butt this past week, and I don't understand why. Pretty much for those of you who listen to the podcast, we mentioned how before the stream just randomly decided not to work anymore. So me and Matt had to basically redo the podcast. Thankfully, we're only about 2-3 minutes into talking, give or take. So that's fine. But today, for whatever reason, I wasn't getting sound from my microphone. My microphone is recording through the Windows 10 setting. It's plugged in to my computer. It just wasn't working. So I took out the plug, put it back in, and then it's fine. Now it's up and running. And so for the few people who saw the live stream before I was able to take it down, I apologize. Sorry. But anyway, I also want to touch base and say the good thing, which is thank you. Thank you to the PWP fans of the Twitter page. We have reached 500 followers plus. Actually, we gained a couple more by the end of the night, last night on Tuesday. And I just want to say thank you. Huge shout out to anyone who follows us. Whoever follows us, I can't speak for Matt, but I try to follow them back. It's just a little token of following us. And then also the fact of we're all a community at the end of the day. We want to grow. We want to get interaction. Everyone wants to be involved. And really the best way to do that is just to follow everyone else. And so for anyone who follows the show on Twitter, which again is @ProWPodcast on Twitter, ding. Thank you for following us. Super cool of you guys. Super awesome. Let's just keep that momentum going. We're going to keep doing it until we hit 1,000 and then 2,000. And we're just going to keep going. We're not going to stop. So anyway, with all that good stuff out of the way, I want to talk to you guys today about NXT Callups. Now, this has been something that I think a lot of us can debate. WWE has handled somewhat smoothly, but also somewhat not so smoothly. We've seen people who have wrestled in NXT have pretty good success on the main roster. Seth Rollins is the very first name that comes to mind. Kevin Owens is another one. Bobby Roode to an extent. So and that's just, kind of current guys. Even if you want to take over to the women, you have Ember Moon who got called up, Asuka, Charlotte Flair, Sasha, and Bayley. So there's a lot of great name power that WWE has been able to see the potential in NXT, call them up to the main roster, and the wheels just keep spinning, and that momentum, it just keeps getting built upon. And so those guys, WWE, got it right. Good job for them. Kudos to you. But, however, there are those call-ups that when they do get called up, you question why they got called up to begin with. And one of those names, for me personally, is the Authors of Pain. These guys, I don't know. I mean, you haven't really heard much from them. They're barely just now getting into feuds, which is with Titus Worldwide, which is okay. I mean, it's a first-time feud. Just, basically make these guys look good, which I know Titus and Apollo Crews will, which, speaking of Apollo, he's another one who got called up, and they didn't really know what to do with him, but I'll get into him in a little bit. With Authors of Pain, yeah, that was a tough one to see, especially since they debuted the Raw after WrestleMania, which is, I was there. I was in New Orleans watching them, and I'm thinking to myself, man, Paul Ellering's going to be back on the main roster. This is going to be sweet. And then Akam and Razor go towards the ring. Paul Ellering stops, and he walks back. And I got chills thinking about that. I know that sounds weird, but I loved the Road Warriors. I loved the Legion of Doom. I loved the Doomsday Device. I loved the whole gimmick that they had. I loved their chemistry. to see Paul Ellering back, it was a blast from the past. And admittingly, I think I marked out probably more than what I should have. So they dropped the ball with them, though. They haven't really done much. They're on Raw one week, they're not on Raw the next, and it's bland. Yeah, and I mentioned Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews is someone who has all of the talent in the world. WWE sticks him with Titus. Not saying anything bad on WWE's part, but I think at the same time, you have a guy who, for his size, shouldn't be able to do some of the things he does. You could market that. There's a huge marketability with Apollo Crews that I think WWE is just missing out on because they want to continuously push the Roman Reigns narrative. And I'm not in any way blaming Roman Reigns for any of this, but when you have him on first, third, and fifth segments, it's drowning other talent. And I think that they're starting to get the picture now of what fans really want to see. So hopefully maybe they'll turn up for any of these guys. But in my opinion, the best way to really properly call up someone, they half did it right with Andrade Cien Almas, and Sanity for that matter. Have these vignettes air and have them air. Keep airing and don't give a date as to when they're going to show up. Just keep airing them. If they're a heel, keep airing these vignettes. Don't give a date. And then when it's convenient for them, they slide in and they just annihilate that face. I'm talking decimating, destroying that face. Best way to get them over because they look good for the fans. Like, oh my God, who's a sawed-off monster? And then you have the NXT diehards who know who he is, know what he's capable of. And I think everything works out for the best. I think they did that a lot with Samoa Joe, and my hats off to them. I'm not a huge Samoa Joe fan, and I know that's an unpopular decision, but I think they did booking wise. They've done everything right for Samoa Joe so far. I can't really see too much to complain about. He's had a couple of nonsensical feuds. This past one with Ty Dillinger that lasted like 2 weeks on SmackDown was stupid. But other than that, I think they're on the right path with him. Now, if you're a face and you want to debut up on the main roster, I think the best way the WWE can do that is by, again, the vignettes. Only this time, add that date. But I think even in doing so, you just give them a taste of who that face is. Why would you want to just show them and add them and say, hey, here's so-and-so? For this example, let's go back. Let's say Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe's someone who they didn't really advertise, but he showed up and he annihilated people from the get-go. Great job of booking a heel from NXT to the main roster. So good job there. A bad decision. He wasn't in NXT, but he's the only one that really comes to mind. That's Mike Kanellis, who he just debuted at a pay-per-view, coming out with Maria to this Power of Love ballad, and nothing. I couldn't tell you when the last time Mike Kanellis was even on Raw, let alone probably a main event. Maybe he's on main event. I don't know. It's just not ideal. You want to push these people in NXT, but when they get up to the main roster, there's that lack of communication between what can we do with them versus what can they do for us. And that is the hugest drawback that some of these guys have when they come up to the main roster. Nikki Cross has been rumored to debut soon. I don't know when, I don't know where, and to me, that makes it perfect. She is a member of Sanity. In my opinion, she is a member of Sanity just as much as the guys. So what is wrong with having her just like show up? And because they're doing this thing with the Usos. So why not add Naomi to the mix and have Naomi start jumping on Sanity, only for Nikki Cross to come in and they start going at it? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. I do think 3 men for Sandy is a little much. I do think they can go with 2. But I think that's a matter of debate. And I'm not really looking forward for a debate, so we'll leave it at that. But nevertheless, I do think that there's a lot of growth that an NXT star can have on the main roster. Not only does it depend on how WWE uses them, it's how they're fully presented to the crowd. It's one thing to have a crappy debut, but then just light it up in the weeks to come. But it's another to you have a bad start from the get-go, and then you don't have any momentum after that. And again, that's what I kind of felt like happened with Mike Kanellis. After he debuted, I kind of, the wheels were turning in my head that this isn't going to end well for him. So I hope that they use him. I hope that they use anybody, really. the goal is to make everybody a star. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but you can't keep pushing the same guys as hard as what you have been. It's fine with pushing people, but you can't push them the way that they've pushed some of the guys. I love AJ Styles with a passion. AJ can do no wrong. He's, pun intended, phenomenal in the ring, great on the mic. What's not to like about AJ? I think at the same time, he hasn't been the focal point of SmackDown necessarily, but he's had that title a lot longer than I think what a lot of people might have even predicted. And I colored me stupid, but I think it would have been great if they gave the title to Rusev at Extreme Rules. It's a shame they didn't because of how much momentum he's had. Not taking anything away from AJ, but I think that was the perfect time you had to create Rusev and make him into the star he should be. And you squandered it because you want to extend the Aiden English Lana storyline when you could have done that at any time. So I think that was a bad booking decision and a slight mistake on the storytelling end, but I think nevertheless, there's still some story you could tell. So who knows? Whatever, that'll do it for this edition of PWP TV. You want to hit the show, the Gmail's ProWrestlingPod@gmail.com. Once again, ProWrestlingPod@gmail.com. You want to hit the Twitter page. The Twitter is @ProWPodcast. Once again, @ProWPodcast. Available on iTunes, Podcast X, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, and right here on YouTube. My name is Nick. I'll see you guys next time.